Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gavinsky's Tutorials. Today I'm going to do a walkthrough of Coastline by Aqeel Aadam. So this is an effect app for desktop and iOS. And Aqeel is the developer of Waymaker, Outgrowth, Weeping Wall, and Ridgewalk, I think are the ones that he's done so far. So I've done videos on most of his stuff here on this channel. And he's been kind enough to sponsor me to make this walkthrough. So thanks a lot, Aqeel. You'll find a lot of information and stuff in the pinned comment of this video, including a link to a much longer video that Aqeel has done, like an hour-long detailed walkthrough. So I'm going to do something different in this video. Instead, I'm going to just really try and focus on explaining the core ideas and the core interesting things of this app. And I'm going to let you hear it on a bunch of different stuff. So, I'm just starting with one thing here, but I've got a load of examples already lined up that I'll switch out to later. So first, let's just look at the general concept and let me let you hear initially what this can sound like. So let me just get this and take here this tide control down. So have a listen to this. Wait a second for it to start. So that's our input, right? Female vocal. And I will link to that as well in the pinned comment. So here, let's start bringing this in. So if I start bringing in this tide, now, let me take the input down, right? So now you're just hearing Coastline. So what's it doing? Every time this lights up, it's basically recording into a buffer. It's recording that audio that's coming in, but then it's resynthesizing it. And it has two different ways that it can resynthesize. One, this tide algorithm uses additive synthesis. So basically, it's analyzing that signal, and then it's resynthesizing it, and it's just using sine oscillators to do that. You can actually change it from sine to other stuff. We'll look at that later, but that's the basic idea. And we can manipulate a lot of stuff about how that all sounds in this tide tab, right? Then here, Glade, this is this other algorithm, and that's a more granular type thing, right? And that's just like we can change how that sounds as well over here in the Glade section. For now, I'm just going to focus more on tide. And there's also a reverb here. And I'm just going to keep that off for now, and we'll look at that later. About the UI, there's also a lot of stuff here in settings, right, that you can take a look at. And I'll look at some of those things maybe later. But I will try and keep this fairly short. And then here we've got a great modulation section, right, with a lot of different stuff. Some stuff that you're probably familiar with, envelope followers. There's even a sequencer in here. Jitter, LFOs. If you're familiar with Aqeel's apps, you'll probably be familiar with some of that stuff, or, just in general, what an envelope follower is, I'd say. But then it's got some other, kind of kooky stuff that you don't really see. Sustainer age, sustainer pitch and stuff. So maybe look at a couple of these little things later as well. If I click out here, now I just, I normally have the habit of saving presets in AUM, so I've saved a bunch of stuff in here, but this has its own perfectly good preset system. Let me let you hear a different example of this, where here, if we go to the sustainers tab, you see the level of these, they're all being modulated. So here we've basically got, 5 synthesized loops, and just playing around with the levels of them. So they're being modulated by things in the modulation section, like this LFO is modulating sustainer volume 1, and this jitter is modulating sustainer volume 5. If we tap here, we can change the destinations for those, right? And it's very easy to modulate stuff in this. Like I can just drag this to something, and here now I'm basically gonna potentially change the how long these things are held for. But I don't actually want to do that anyway, so I'm just going to turn it off. But that's that's how you can assign modulation so easily here. I'm going to switch back to the example that I had just a second ago. So here we can change the number of those sustainers, these synthesized loops, and set the fade in and fade out times for them, and set how long the buffer is. So here it's set to 3 seconds. We can put that up to 15 seconds if we want. Double tap, reset to the default 3. It can go down as low as half a second as well. Here I can solo these, right? And then, we can modulate these sliders. These are volume sliders for them, right? Or we can just, manipulate those ourselves. Let me turn solo off on that. Right, so you can see that you could do some really interesting stuff there. Let's go into this tide section. This is also really interesting. So here, we can set the volume, and that's linked to this knob here, right? If I change this, you'll see this one changing as well. Or if I change this, you'll see that changing there. So with wave shape, when this is set to 0, it's sine waves. When we bring it down, it's square, or saw, was it? And then we bring it up, it starts wave folding. Here we set the number of partials that we have, right? So it'll use a different oscillator for each of those. So there, we just have the fundamental and one partial. And then here we can put it up to as many as 25. Let me just click to put it back to default. We have a bit of chorus here as well, by the way. You hear that difference in the left and right ear, especially if you're wearing headphones. This offset is really interesting. So, here, the things that are brighter, they are the louder frequencies. Here we can basically change that emphasis so we can make loud frequencies quiet and quiet frequencies louder, right? Listen to that. Right, beautiful. And then here we can basically set, how harmonic stuff will be. So here it's only going to allow the harmonic type of frequencies. And if we bring this, let me just play with this first and you'll see what I mean. So, this is all very kind of consonant. But if I bring this down, we get a lot more inharmonic partials. And it sounds a lot more kind of atonal, which can sound great though, you might want that. So let me just reset those for a second. And we have here this flow one, so this is another mode. In this one, it analyzes the incoming audio as well, but here it's not just analyzing frequencies, it's trying to determine what notes are involved, and then it will base the partials map, basically, that it builds up individually for each of those notes. So here, this chroma, this will basically shift the, make it brighter or darker. And here we can change, what will it shift? Will it just focus on just fixed frequencies, like say, 400 hertz, 600 hertz, or 650 hertz or whatever? Or will it think more in terms of, these intervallic relationships, a third, a fifth, and so on? So let's have a listen. I'll put this up at 100 and change this. So this is the more intervallic one, if I'm remembering right. And I think 0 is the one based on pure frequencies. I'll just bring that input down. Now, let's just put this back. And I'll switch to another input to continue. Okay, so here's the input I'm going to use for this guitar. Now bring this in, you don't hear anything because I've turned the input down, right? So let me bring that input down. And here I'm going to just look at the Glade one. So we access the detailed controls for this on the Glade tab here. So this, should be easy enough to grok for anybody familiar with granular. So, here we're changing the size of the grains. And a bit of stereo spread. Blur. If this is down, we may have more unstable volume fluctuations. Here we can kind of smooth it out with this. I think for this, I quite like it like that. This will increase how fast it moves around the buffer to pick up different parts of that. It's basically jumping around a lot faster. You can even see that visualized here. And this is playing with sample rate, and it really sounds beautiful. Just put that back up. I put churn, put it down a little bit. I'm just going to leave blur like that. So also here, look, we can change the pitch for this. And there are some settings as well that will let you, lock it to octaves and stuff like that. But here it's going semitones. One thing I do wish, there's no just pure free mode, like everything's quantized. I don't know why there's not an option where you can move completely freely. So that's down 2 octaves, up 2 octaves. So, same thing, right, with the tide part. That's lovely, isn't it? Now you can probably hear there's some other stuff going on there. That's down in this audio matrix, right? So that's another really interesting part of this. So basically here, we can do amplitude modulation where different things will modulate each other. So we can actually load samples, and it comes with some samples built in, right? Like this waves one here. But you can load your own samples as well. And here, playing around with the center frequency and how wide that is. So that's modulating tide, right? And I could make it modulate something else as well. Again, I'm going to try and keep this short, so I won't, try and demo every single little thing. And here I can change the pitch of this as well, right? There's pitched up and sped up as well, by the way. So, we can have different stuff going on there, like, we could have Glade. Glade could modulate that, and so on. You can see there's a lot of different possibilities. We can also use sidechain. And here, sample, we can drop or tap to load a sample. It'll open the Files app, and you can navigate to a sample. So that's a super cool feature. That guitar sample, by the way, was given to me by a guy called pbelgium. I'll link to his SoundCloud as well in the comment and the description of the video. Thanks a lot, Paul. Let's move on to the next example and the next part of the app that I want to look at. So here, look, I want to show you, we can use percussive stuff as well. So here I've got Buga, just a simple little beat. And then bringing this in. Listen, it sounds great, doesn't it? It's a bit like a sort of spectral resonator. I just want to mention as well that obviously this is going to pair really well with different effects. Like here I'm putting it through this thing, false memory, doing a sort of digital distortion, glitchy type stuff. You know, I could put that before it as well, but I think for this it's going to sound better after. So hold time. See here, I've brought that down to just 1 second. Which can be really interesting as well. Like don't leave it up an infinite all the time, play around with it. So filter, right? Tap here and it will open that tab, right? Or we can tap, you know, on the tab itself. So simple enough here, you know. Multi-mode filter, low band pass, high, right? Adjust the frequencies, resonance. But this is interesting, right? Feedback. So here it'll basically feed the audio, the cutoff frequency back on itself, and you can end up with some really interesting stuff. Like it can get pretty extreme on something like this. Right? Bit of stereo spread, it'll change the filter cutoff slightly on the left and right ears. Oh, or not so slightly, right? Like that's massive difference. So we can make it subtle or much more extreme. That's really cool that. Let me bring up the reverb. So let's just see, you know, what we've got here. We've got the input, we've got Tide, we've got Glade, we've got the reverb. So look, this is really cool. Here we got a frequency offset for the filter. So I can, for example, lower the frequency on the Tide part, right? Relative to this, you know, it's lowered by 55% there. So it's going to be around, you know, 1 kilohertz now, roughly. Or we can increase that, right? This is great. There, same thing on Glade, right? Input and reverb are not on by default, but you can change those. So there, you know, I've basically cut out the input audio altogether. And same with the reverb. Right? That's very inventive, I reckon. Let's look at a couple of other things. So here I've got Spelldozer by Clave Grand. Have a listen to that. Right, just a little sort of music boxy thing being sequenced by Fugue Machine Rubato. I've got this here. I'm not using that at the moment, but I will in a second, and you'll see. I'm going to use that for sidechaining. That's really interesting. But first, let's take a look at this. So here, you know, we're not hearing anything apart from the input, right? Input 100%, all these others are down. So first of all, let's just let you hear that with a little bit of these brought in. So remember, Tide is the additive resynthesis, Glade granular, okay? And then we have the reverb. So we talked about the matrix a bit earlier, so I won't look at that right now. We skip past that to the reverb. So change the decay for the reverb. That can go up to 30 seconds, right? Or as little as 0.1 seconds. That's the default. So this is basically the amount of modulation, right? And the rate of modulation. I think we keep that, you know, a bit more subtle, basically. Damping, you know, all the typical stuff that you'd expect in a reverb. But we can also do this sort of lo-fi thing on the reverb tails. Which is interesting, and that could be cool to modulate. There's also a chaos thing here for this modulation as well. Just add in a random element. But then look, this is super interesting. So here, if we go into this section, we can control what's actually getting sent to the reverb. So, you know, I could bring those down and basically now nothing's getting sent to the reverb. I could only send Glade to the reverb. And by the way, these are pre-faders, so even if I have Glade down here, I can still send Glade into the reverb and we'll hear the reverbed granular stuff, but not the actual, you know, granular itself. So that's brilliant that it has that. Now I want to show you the sidechain feature. So this is great. So if we go back to the sustainers tab, you have you know, main input, right? In which case it will record from the main input to create the sustainers, right? But if we change that to sidechain, let me just press this X to get rid of those. If we change this to sidechain, it can instead take another audio source that it will use to make the sustainers, which is just brilliant. So you have to set this up in the right way, and how you do it's going to depend on your host, right? Like basically, I just turned this off for a second. So let me let you hear what I'm going to use. So here I've got the same MIDI actually. And we don't have to do it like that, of course, but that's what I decided to do. Going into this harpsichord, right? So now we're going to use the sound of the harpsichord to create those sustains. So if I tap here, I have to go to, in AUM, right? It's like this again, it depends on your host. Go to multibus audio unit instances, and then here, select anything that can be multibus will be shown here. So I choose Coastline, okay, and bring Coastline in. And now I'm gonna actually turn that down. I'll turn this up. And now it's using that harpsichord sound to create these sustainers. Let's change it up. Right, so that's, you know, the main input. I mean, it'll take a while for it to replace all the sustainers. But you can hear it's already different. And now I put on sidechain again. It'll take a little while, but now we're getting the harpsichord. So, I mean, you could do all kinds of absolutely crazy stuff with that, right? Crazy. So modulation, you know, Aqeel goes into that in quite a bit of detail in his video, so I'll leave that for his video there. Yeah, I hope this was useful for you guys. Thanks again to Aqeel for sponsoring the video. Let me know what you think of the app in the comments. I think it's super cool. It's definitely, I don't have anything really that works exactly the way this does. Yeah, let me know your thoughts. All right, take care. See you in the next one.